What is up, guys? Well, you know what, yeah. I've done quite a few profiles now, and as you can probably tell from my other videos, I do a bit of weird builds sometimes. I like to have fun when I make decks. I don't want to just make regular meta decks. I mean, if I'm at regionals or something, then yeah, sure, I'll take the most busted Emancipator deck or whatever, and I'll let it fly there. But if I'm like in my house chilling, I love making these weird decks. And as you can see on my screen, this is probably one of the weirdest decks I've ever made. And the funny thing is, when I started to make it, I didn't think it was going to work. I had no idea it was going to work. But then I've been taking it into some games recently, and it just dominates. It's probably one of the best decks that I've made in a while. But anyway, yeah, without further ado, let's get into this Magical Musketeer Fossil deck profile. So guys, look, the new Fossil archetype came out. Well, I wouldn't say came out, but the cards have finally been released. They were announced a while ago, and the cards have finally been released. I think it's Battles of Legend or whatever. And so the Fossil archetype is quite unique. The idea really behind it is that it's a bunch of rocks that you can fuse by banishing materials from both graveyards. Now, this is awesome in itself, but the monsters are also really, really good at just kind of doing damage and generating advantage regardless of what happens. So I'm going to quickly go over the fossil monsters, and then I'm going to explain the idea behind this deck and why it's so effective. So to start off with, the only main deck, there are other fossil monsters actually, that's a lie, but the only relevant main deck fossil monster is Weathering Soldier. So if it's sent to graveyard by card effect or destroyed by battle, you can add a fossil fusion or a card that lists fossil fusion in this text, and then during the end phase, it loses 600 attack. Whenever you see a card that has this whole one card that specifically lists clause, you know that's Konami's band-aid fix to an archetype. They always do that. They love having cards like that. And this card is awesome, obviously. It's going to search your main fusion spell. And then also, it loses attack in the end phase. We don't really care about this. 9 times out of 10, this is going to be in your graveyard. You don't want to see it anywhere else than your graveyard. But then moving on from that, so we have Miracle Rupture. Now, this is an insane spell. You can send one level 4 or lower rock monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then the Fossil Fusion is in your graveyard, draw a card. So it's a great card. It's going to get you a search with Weathering Soldier, and then if you've already got Fossil Fusion, so after turn 1 basically, it's also going to get you an extra draw. So this card is really, really good. It's just a nice card to have. I also like the artwork. It's got that giant soldier of stone on it. But yeah, so this card is really good as well. And then their fusion spell. Their fusion spell is so unique and yet so strong. So their fusion spell reads, fusion summon one fossil fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from either player's graveyard. And if you banish monsters from both, neither can target this under summon monster with monster effects. If a fossil monster you control is destroyed by a card or card effect or battle, add this card back to your hand. So this fusion spell is insane. Fusion spells, ritual spells, stuff that lets you basically banish materials from your deck, from your graveyard, that kind of stuff is always amazing for these decks, because it basically means they lose the main disadvantage that the fusion decks will have, which is you have to have the materials in your hand and you have to have the spell in your hand. But with this, you don't need to. And what makes it even better is it's like Invocation. You can banish materials from your opponent's graveyard. That means Emancipator, bye-bye Block Dragon, bye-bye Researcher. I mean, it's insane. And even if they don't have it, all the materials are very generic. So obviously I can get rid of a Block Dragon, for example, if I wanted to. Or I can just get rid of anything they have in their graveyard. One level 4 lower monster for this one. One level 5 or 6 monster, one level 7 or higher. So obviously extra deck monsters, if they have links, you're not going to be getting rid of those, but it's almost guaranteed your opponent's going to have some sort of monster with a level in their graveyard. It's like I can't think of a deck off the top of my head that won't have at least one. So it's going to be very, very easy to activate and fulfill that requirement. And obviously you're using it from both graveyards, which is great. And then if you fuse from both graveyards, they also can't target your fossil monsters, which are quite good as well. Then moving on from that, we have Time Stream. Now this is a quite interesting, so it's kind of like a fusion, but what it does is you target a fossil fusion, tribute it, and then special summon from your extra deck one fossil fusion whose original level is 2 higher than the tributed monster, and this is treated as a fusion summon. And then also you can banish this in a fossil fusion monster from your graveyard to special summon another fossil fusion. Now this card is quite good. It's a bit of a brick, I won't deny it. I think I might actually take this down to 1 thinking about it now, but it's still quite a nice card to have. Just really lets you rank up, not rank up, but level up your fossil monsters, which is nice. But it's a good card to have. I'll probably say in this package, that's the only one you don't want to see. Everything else can be a 1-card combo. This one can't be. So yeah, I might take him down to 1 just for consistency. Having said that, he hasn't been an issue yet. Then let's move on to the fossil extra deck monsters. So they have Fossil Warrior Skullbone. Has to be such someone with Fossil Fusion. It can make a second attack, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to add a time stream from your deck to your hand. And its materials are 1 rock monster, 1 level 4 lower monster. Now, just going into this, by the way, this deck is insane, especially because the card's out now. Just because every single monster in this archetype has very, very generic requirements, which means as long as you can basically put a rock on the field or in the graveyard, you can special summon stuff with this archetype, which is great. So yeah, moving on, we have Fossil Dragon Skullgar. Now what they have is, the first one, it has to just be a level 4 lower monster. The second variant, and this is with the level 8 as well, it needs to be a monster in your opponent's graveyard specifically, which is you have to keep that in mind. And just basing on this, I would say as well, guys, one thing you have to remember, I think this deck, the idea behind it is that they want you to almost kind of be digging for those rocks in both your grave and the opponent's grave, and which is going to make it almost certainly kind of like a going second package. You're not really going to get much value out of this if you go first, because you won't even be able to fuse half of the monsters, and it also has no negates. But anyway, moving on from that, yeah, so we have this one. Skullgar allows you to do piercing damage, and then allows you to add Fossil Fusion. We move on to Skull Knight, the level 6. It does piercing damage. It can do a second attack in a row if it destroys a monster, and if you can banish it from the graveyard to target 1 card monster on the field and destroy it. Skull King does piercing damage. It needs a level 7 higher monster, and then you can target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon that to your field as a quick effect. That's a really, really nice effect to have, to be honest. You will resolve it quite often as well. It's very easy to resolve. All you have to do is discard a card, basically, and your cards like being discarded for this. And then Skullgios, Skullgios, I don't care, but again, this needs level 7 or higher in the opponent's graveyard. It does piercing damage. No, sorry, it doesn't do piercing damage. You can switch the current attack and defense of your opponent's monster until the end of the damage step. Oh yeah, sorry, it does do piercing. Gosh, it's so late. But anyway, yeah. And then if it battles an opponent's monster, it does double battle damage. So this is your OTK machine. Now, so as you look at this package, you can see it's really focused around kind of bringing out these fusions, denying your opponent's resources, and then pinging them for good damage. These monsters are just good in general at clearing the board. And what's amazing about this archetype is it doesn't need a normal summon at all. It needs very, very little to do anything. And that's why I've decided to pair it with Magical Musketeers, because this deck is almost the opposite. Magical Musketeers, they don't do a lot of damage. They have crap tons of utility, and they don't really care about special summoning. Like, they use your first normal summon and they summon max, but that's it. They don't even interact with the rocks. But it's this weird synergy that the two decks have. This fossil archetype really allows Magical Musketeers to kind of do their own thing and still be able to kill your opponent very, very efficiently. So it's just a really good archetype. So again, this is a blind second list. So we've got kind of standard Musketeer ratios. The only kind of differences I'd say is that I've taken down Last Stand to 2 and I've taken down Kid Brave to 2. And that's really just for more room for these fossil spells and traps and stuff. Or fossil spells, not fossil traps. But yeah, that's really the idea. You're going to be going second, disrupting your opponent with muskets, and then you're going to just resolve your Miracle Rupture, resolve your Weathering Soldier, and destroy your opponent. And that's what makes it so amazing, because what you're going to find is that a lot of the time, you're going to be able to break through most of your opponent's board with your hand traps and with your muskets, and then they won't have anything to stop your big-ass fossil monsters from destroying them. And they generate so much advantage. I mean, if you resolve Miracle Rupture, what's going to happen is you're going to resolve Miracle Rupture, you're going to send Weathering Soldier. Weathering Soldier is going to search for Fossil Fusion. Fossil Fusion is going to bring you a fusion monster on the field, and that's just from 1 card. And that's ignoring the fact that you might already have Fossil Fusion in your graveyard that you can get a free draw off the Miracle Rupture for. So, I mean, guys, this deck is insane. I'm telling you now, try it. I'm definitely going to have some VODs out in the next few days just to show you how amazing this variant is. But guys, this fossil archetype, especially with the Musketeers, is insane. And to be honest, I think it's going to be pretty busted with other rock archetypes as well. I mean, I haven't bothered to make an Adamantipate variant, that I probably will. But yeah, I haven't bothered to do it, but definitely Adamantipate is going to be great support for this deck. Another deck that isn't going to be too bad in combination is Invoked. There's just a lot of synergy between the two archetypes, between this and Invoked, so that's going to be another deck definitely that's going to work really well with this. Shadows is another really good archetype, especially with Mathematician, because obviously Withering Soldier loves being sent to the grave. I mean, in general, this fossil archetype is really, really, really good, and I can guarantee you that it's going to do a lot of work in the extra deck. It's just kind of like this going second package. What I would say as well is that it's very possible you'll only really see people play this big guy, Skull King, and probably Skullgar. The other three aren't amazing, but they are good. They are still good monsters. It's just that the ability to special summon your opponent's monsters, to do double piercing damage, and the ability to do piercing damage and also search the Fossil Fusion with Skullgar, and it's a rank 4 for rank 4 plays. It's too hard to pass up. So I'd definitely say Skullgar, Skull King, and Skullgar are the three best of the fusion monsters, but the other two are still good as well. It'll be really interesting as well to see if fossils get more support, because this deck is quite nice. And I mean, if this is the start that they have already, I mean, I can't wait to see what else they get. But yeah, guys, so I just had to make this deck profile for you really quickly, just because, I mean, it's insane. Guns and Rocks, go and try it out, guys. I'm telling you now, you won't be disappointed. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Talk to you all soon. Peace.